September the 19th at 7 p.m. Everyone, please rise for the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Chris, to you for the open public meeting statement, please.
Notice of this meeting has been given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act and the annual notice of meeting. A copy was posted on the township website. A notice of this meeting was sent to the Sentinel, and a copy was posted at the Franklin Township Municipal Building.
Okay, thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Travaglione?
Here.
Mr. Bruno?
Here.
Mr. Sweet?
Here.
Mr. Cahoot? Mr. Mulady?
Here.
Mr. Constantine?
Here.
Mr. Ranson?
Here.
Chairman Pesh?
Here. And would you add Mr. Kelly to that list, please? And we'll seat Mr. Ranson for Tim Doyle this evening. Right. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution PB 2307, Ken Doherty Jr.
I'll make a motion to approve PB 2307.
Second.
Motion and second, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Mulady?
Yes.
Mr. Constantine?
Abstain?
Mr. Ranson?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Travaglione?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Chairman Pesh?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. At this time, we'll move on to the application 2309 for a Chris Privatera. Sorry about the mispronunciation there.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Cassio with the law firm of Archer and Griner on behalf of the applicant Christopher Privatera. The applicant is seeking minor subdivision approval in connection with property located at 1654 Catawba Avenue, also known as Block 7002, Lot 11. The property as it exists today is 24.8 acres and is located in the RA zoning district. More specifically, the applicant is proposing to create two new lots. The proposed lot 11 will be 3 acres in size. This has the existing dwelling located on it. And then the applicant is also proposing a new lot 11.01, which will be 21.8 acres in size. No development is proposed at this time. I would like to point out that there is an existing non-conforming front yard setback of 59 feet, where the ordinance requires a minimum front yard setback of 75 feet. This application does not impact that prior non-conformity. With me tonight, I have two witnesses, the applicant, Christopher Privatera, and surveyor, Edward Constantine, Jr. If you would like to have them sworn in at this time. Yep.
You raise your right hand. Swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, nothing but the truth, so I hope you got it.
I do.
Thank you.
And we have one exhibit that I would like to read into the record. It's exhibit.
Counselor, can I ask you to speak, try to redirect the microphone and speak up? I'm having a real hard time.
Okay, is this, all right, I hear it now. We have exhibit A1 is our only exhibit tonight, and it is the minor subdivision plan. Before we hear the details of the minor subdivision, I would like to call the applicant forward to explain the reason for the minor subdivision and to answer any questions that the board members may have at this time for him.
Michael, will you accept the A1?
Yes.
Chris, would you come up? And can you just explain for the board the intent of the subdivision?
Yes, mainly 24.8 acres. I've discovered a lot of land, so to make that easier on myself and make the property more marketable, to eventually, hopefully, sell the additional land.
And can you please confirm for the board that there are no proposed improvements at this time and that this application is not related to any cannabis development?
That's correct. There's nothing in the works and nothing related to cannabis at all.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
This is for you. Is this a by right application? No variances are being requested?
That's correct.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to bring forward our professional surveyor to describe the minor subdivision. And would you please state your name and your qualifications for the board?
My name is Edward Joseph Constantine Jr., professional land surveyor in the state of New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. 45 years of experience. I've performed multiple surveys for the Green Acres Farmland Preservation Program throughout the state and also here in Franklin Township.
Everybody okay with qualifications? Any questions? Yeah, okay. All right, proceed.
The property is approximately 1,800 feet deep, approximately almost 600 feet in width. Contains the approximately almost 24.8 acres. We are proposing to cut out a 3-acre section here that will accommodate the house and some existing buildings in use. There is a greenhouse temporary type structure located here. Future use is up to whoever purchases the property. There are ruins of what appear to be old farm buildings for that purpose located here in the wooded section and here. The subdivision provides for a 50-foot right-to-farm buffer on the westerly boundary and a 100-foot buffer on the southerly boundary of the property. And the acreage, the proposed subdivided lot will contain approximately, will be exactly 3 acres.
On which 3 acres on what? The 11.01?
11, lot 11 will be the route.
Okay. 3 acres on 11?
11, lot 11.01 will be 21.806.
Not the way it should have on the plan.
Yeah.
1101 is 3 acres.
That's right, that's what I was a little confused.
They corrected that. I don't know if it went all to you. They submitted updated plans a couple of weeks ago where they flipped them around.
We have updated plans we brought with us.
That's why we're questioning. Okay, so
The updated plans we have they corrected the two
I
numbers.
have some right here.
They flip-flop them?
Yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't do us no good at this point.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. We flip-flop the 11 and 11.01.
Was the front yard setback addressed?
Front
From
yard
the
set,
old plan?
excuse me, sir?
Was the front yard setback addressed on the new plan?
Front yard setback is as required by the township. However, the building, which is an existing house on a lot, does not conform to that.
Okay.
Okay?
There's no changes are being proposed. The existing front yard setback is going to remain a nonconformity.
Very good. Okay.
Any other questions?
You done?
I'm done.
You done? All right, Chris, council, you have anything else?
No, sir. Just want to reiterate that this is a by right minor subdivision application to solely create 2 new lots out of 1.
Understood.
Yep. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted, the comment that was made about that the reason for this subdivision is to make these properties more attractive in the event of a sale, and that there is no intention of creating any cannabis growing facility, either indoor or outdoor. So you're on the record as saying that. Now, if you, does that preclude him from changing his mind? And if he changes his mind, does he have to come back in front of the board?
So if the applicant or any future developer wish to develop any cannabis-related business or farming activity, that would go before the zoning board.
You concur, Michael?
Yes, yeah, we can't, we're not restricting whatever may be done with the property in the future if it's permitted. It's
Right now,
permitted.
it's just it's a two lots, or three lots subdivision.
They'd have to go to the state for some licenses for that too.
Understood. Okay.
So anything that's permitted could be developed, and anything that's not permitted could be developed if they receive the approvals, as any other piece of property.
You okay down there, Jim? All right. Who wants to go first, Chris or Ed?
I'll go first. So, as Chris mentioned before, they actually submitted a revised plan early last week, addressing all the engineering comments that I had in our letter. I believe Chris might have a few additional comments, but once we review the revised information through, concurrence, it seems as everything has been addressed as of now on my end.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. They addressed all of my comments. There's only one thing I would like them to address, and that is the access to the farm lot. It looks like right now there's a driveway on the adjacent property to the south that provides shared access to the farm as well as to that property. With that driveway being on another site, technically there is no driveway access to the farm right now other than going across that property. So I don't know if there's any cross-access easement. But if there's no cross-access easement and that property owner wanted to then take away the access driveway, then they would have to put in their own driveway, although there's plenty of room to do that if they needed to. But technically, every property is supposed to have its own access to the street.
Well, the property does have road frontage.
It has plenty of frontage, but you don't have any actual driveway right now, or
Well, there's no
opening.
development planned,
But
per se.
Is that presently on the farm?
Presently, it's being cultivated in the back half here. Has approximately 220 feet of road access.
access and how they access the field?
This road here, they've been coming in across here, the boundaries, both properties, and then coming in, to our knowledge. There is openings that don't show up in the aerial through here, where there is actually no trees, it's just dense brush. Okay? I know that shouldn't be much of a hindrance for opening up a road.
Before we open the public, any questions? No? Good. Counselor, do you have anything else to present before I open the public?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
This time I entertain a motion to open this application to the public. A motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're open to public comment on this application. Anyone who wants to come forward? You, Sarah, state your name and address for the record, please.
Ron Farabella, 591 South Bluebell Road.
Good evening, Ron.
Good evening. My question is, he did mention further development. He wanted to leave it open, have the two lots, and then have it open for further development. What's the further development?
No, this application has no further development. They're taking a large lot and dividing it into three lots. Two lots. With that, if there was to be development in the future, that would be a totally different application. The application tonight is to subdivide the property into two lots.
All right, so right now, it's considered,
That's the only thing that's on the table this evening is a subdivision of the property, creating separate lots. If he was going to do anything else in the future, then that would be a different application, a different night, a different time.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Hearing none, seeing none, at this time I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion of the meeting. Have a motion?
Second.
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Chris, Ed, anything else?
Only thing I can add, again, this is very close to a by right application. The only actual variance is for an existing non-conforming condition for the front yard setback.
Correct.
The other issue that's technically a design waiver is the lack of an actual improved driveway providing access to the farm, where they're not having any trouble accessing the farm as it is right now. So I don't see that as an issue.
Okay. All right. Michael, do you have any input?
I do not.
board have any other questions? Comments? This time I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve PB 2309.
Second.
Moved, seconded, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Travelion?
Yes.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Sweet?
Yes.
Mr. Malady?
Yes.
Mr. Constantine?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
No.
Mr. Ranson?
Yes.
Chairman Peck?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to correspondence. There's a certified letter from Engineering Design Associates in reference to the block 6803. Is there any action needed on that? There's no action needed on the certified letter on EVA, right? The first item on the correspondence.
Wow. I'm sorry.
That's all right, take your time.
Some additional information on that first one. I'm sorry, guys. I don't think there's any action.
No action, I didn't think so, after I read it, I didn't think so either. I just want to make sure. Okay. Michael, you want to touch on the correspondence piece number 2, please?
Yes, just informational for the board. Get a copy of the motion to see what was pending. Just an update on the scheduling. The motion originally was going to be for, I think, September 22nd. The other party requested a postponement for that, which we agreed to, but as a result, they also agreed to postpone the hearing of the application until November. Depending on which way the judge rules. If the judge rules to hear it, it'll be November. If not, then you won't hear it at all until sometime in the future. This is scheduled.
Can you talk about it? I mean, what's need to, are we agreeing to not take action on something? I mean, exactly what is this?
I think the motion in the brief sort of speaks for itself. I don't know what I could add to it.
Well, it seems like the planning board wants to skip, wants to not move forward on something there that I'm not sure. Maybe I wasn't at that meeting, but when did we agree not to take actions?
Well, Jim, I want to let Mike answer this. There was a closed session that was held with regards to the lawsuit, solar lawsuit. So because it's in litigation, I'm going to let Michael answer what can be said and what can't be said. So I protect the town.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question is. Of course, we can't discuss whatever was discussed in the closed session. The only thing that was agreed to was when we filed the motion, they asked for a postponement because the attorney's going to be on vacation. And we said yes, but then as a result of that, if we hear it, instead of being in October, it would be in November. That's the only scheduling thing that we discussed and agreed to.
When did we decide not to, or when did we decide to file this?
Well, that was part of the closed session, so I'm not going to discuss that further here. Only thing that needs, I mean, I don't need one, but
I'm not understanding. I don't recall. I don't recall us deciding what to do here.
It was during the last meeting, which was August.
I think it was a discussion. It wasn't.
We went into closed session during the August.
It was a discussion, not a formal.
True.
there was no need for a formal vote. I mean, we just, yeah, I'm not not gonna let somebody take us into a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act.
That's why I'm not saying nothing, I want to make sure you get it right.
I don't see a need to rehash what we discussed. The motion wouldn't have been filed unless it was done properly. The majority of the board wants to go into closed session. Again, that's up to you. If somebody else doesn't understand it.
All right, I'm going to move forward. If there's a motion and a second to go into close, we'll go into close. At this point, I'm going to move forward with the rest of the meeting, and we'll see how it plays out.
Then I would like to raise the motion to go into closed session.
I'll second it.
One motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
You probably should do a roll call or a.
No, I don't think roll call is necessary on that type of a motion, Mike. I'm just determining whether or not to continue through because there will be there's no action to be taken. So rather than have the public leave and then come back again, let me finish the meeting, then we'll go into close because there's no action to be taken. A member's looking for an explanation. So, all right. The last correspondence report on action from the Gloucester County Planning Board on the new DJ Dollar General, and that's in your packet. And the minutes of August the 15th. I need a motion for minutes of August 15th was submitted electronically.
Motion to approve minutes of August 15th. Second.
Moving second, all in favor? Aye. Yeah, I got two abstentions, Mr. Swade and Mr. Constantine, who wasn't present, was not present at the last meeting. Okay, all right, entertain a motion to go into the public, general public portion.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Okay, we're in public portion, if anyone would wish to approach.
Good evening. Leah Vassallo, 560 Delsey Drive. I just, some of this may be repetitive. I know I've said it a number of times on the Township Committee, and I think I've discussed it once here in front of the Planning Board too. The motion that came into question is related to a lawsuit that stems from the Grachowski property of nearly 300 acres on Fries Mill Road that is currently farmed by Tim Doyle, who's both a member of this Planning Board and the Township Committee. He rents the property and farms it. The actual owners of the property would like to sell the property for solar development, and they've entered into an option with a company who has actually applied to the zoning board in the past to get an interpretation as to whether this commercial solar field is an approved use in that district. Now, on Mr. Borelli, the solicitor's recommendation, they voted 4-3 that it is not an approved use. Mr. Borelli did not recuse himself despite having represented Mr. Doyle privately. Mr. Doyle's employee who sits on the zoning board did not recuse himself despite being...
I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
Is there a planning board question?
There absolutely is, but I have to go through the background. No, I have to go through the background. So he's the deciding vote in a 4-3 decision, a split decision that says this is not an approved use. The applicant files a lawsuit and a judge disagrees with the zoning board and said no, by the state statute allowing commercial solar farms on any industrial property, and having read the approved uses of that zone, he determines that it is an approved use.
And the planning board question is?
I'm getting to it. The zoning board appeals that decision. They appeal the decision, they enter the appeal before they ever take a vote in public to do so. So it's appealed without a public vote by the zoning board. Now we have the planning board taking action also without any public vote having taken place. And what I can only say is incredibly silly, ridiculous. You can disagree, but this is my 5 minutes. I don't have to ask a question, I can speak.
Okay.
So we're spending taxpayer money to appeal a decision that a particular use is allowed in a particular zone. That use is defined as inherently beneficial for planning purposes by the state of New Jersey, which means it's universally considered of value to the community because it fundamentally serves the public good and promotes the general welfare. Such a use includes but is not limited to a hospital, school, child care center, group home, or a wind, solar, or photovoltaic energy facility or structure. We're spending taxpayer money to prevent an inherently beneficial use from coming into the township, a use that a judge has already said is allowed, and we're preventing what is likely the largest rateable Franklin Township will have ever attracted in the history of the township. By estimates, solar farms of this type cost $400,000 to $500,000 per acre to install. You're looking at potentially up to 200 or more acres out of this 300. I don't know exactly because I haven't seen their plans, but you're talking about a project that's likely $75 to $125 million. They're not asking for a pilot program. They're not asking for any special consideration. It has a minimal environmental impact because the ground is already cleared, and it requires almost no services from the township. So township resources are being used both in terms of cost for legal fees and lost income in what's likely millions of dollars a year between the township and our schools. So that Tim Doyle, who sits on the township committee and the planning board, can continue to farm a property that he rents instead of allowing the lawful owner to sell the property for development. Now, something even weirder, and this is where I'm getting to the question, Joe, and I thank you for being patient.
I'm very patient.
Now this planning board has filed a motion to stay the progress that the judge ordered to proceed through with the planning board application without a public vote to do so, by an attorney you did not appoint, correct? When did the planning board appoint or hire or in any way do anything related to Madden and Madden? When did the planning board take a vote to say we're going to have John Paul Madden represent us?
We did.
No, correct.
Have Mr. Borelli.
But he's not the attorney.
And he's our attorney who is representing this board, and at his advice, right, wrong, or indifferent, because I questioned the same thing, and I questioned the same question you had, and I was advised by counsel that this is the way it goes.
So Mr. Borelli's deciding who represents.
Any other attorney in the room, I have to follow the guidance of the attorney.
No, the attorney does not have the authority to hire a different attorney on behalf of the planning board. Absolutely not.
Mr. Borelli is representing this board, and at the advice of Mr. Borelli, we followed what we were told that was our best interest.
But you can only follow advice by taking a vote in public. That's the only way. So how did you follow his advice without having discussed it or taken a vote?
I was told it was not appropriate, it was not necessary.
To take a vote on hiring an attorney.
Mr. Borelli, did you tell me that?
I don't think you should be, and I am not going to comment on starting a debate about our legal proceedings that are in progress.
Well, I will just refer you to Resolution 148-22, which is a Township Committee resolution that accepts Madden and Madden's proposal for professional legal services for a case that isn't this one and other matters as assigned by the Township Committee. So I would make the argument that the Township Committee, which is supposed to be a separate governing body, completely independent, in which Mr. Doyle sits on, has chosen the attorney who is making the decisions for what this planning board is doing without the proper actions being taken. Thank you for your time.
Harry Kennedy, 1578 Fry's Mill Road.
Good evening, Mr. Kennedy. How are you this evening?
Fine, Mr. Petch, and you?
I'm fine.
Good. First of all, I'd like to thank the entire board for your wisdom in continuing. I know it's not mandated by law that you have a public portion at each one of the planning board meetings, but I think that as a board that reflects the township and serves the interests of the township, and I believe that many of you up there do serve the interests of the township, it's very important to have a public portion. And again, there are always going to be people that disagree with you. That's part of life. I had plenty of people that disagreed with me when I sat up there as chairman and when I sat as mayor. That's part of the process. And many of the disagreements were meaningful, and some of the times I was wrong and they were right. And as you go into your closed session tonight, which won't be the first closed session in which this was discussed, because there was never a legal vote taken to appeal that ruling by the courts. The zoning board, by a 4-3 vote, decided that that particular site was not appropriate for solar energy. The Superior Court of the state of New Jersey, my, what a shock, disagreed with the zoning board. I can't believe it. I wonder why that zoning board wouldn't let that solar energy go there. Joe, you and I will discuss it later as to why that might be. But this is a township that approved, and again, not thanks to you because you guys stopped it. It approved the change by allowing solar energy to go into highway commercial development, into wetlands, into areas that were targeted for redevelopment zones. But it tried to prevent a lawful use, at least according to the Superior Court of the state of New Jersey. I believe that might be a somewhat more unbiased group than the zoning board of Franklin Township, with the deciding vote being cast by one of Mr. Doyle's employees. So be very, very careful. Again, all of you up here serve the residents of Franklin Township. You serve all of us. And in my opinion, most of you have served us well. If it wasn't for this planning board, there would be a redevelopment zone right now, right this minute, right this very second, right there on Route 40 on land that's owned or not owned by Mr. Rohn, who, by the way, has sold an option to somebody. And nobody wants to discuss who that option went to. But I'll bet you we have some people sitting on this board that know exactly where that option went. If they're not in on it themselves, they know who has it. And that's why they wouldn't share that information with you. That's why it took 3 months to get information back to the planning board. That's why obfuscation is the greatest skill of some attorneys. That's why voting in private in a closed session in violation of state law is a standard practice in Franklin Township. Please, don't let yourselves become jokes. You're not jokes. You're the representatives of Franklin Township. You're not Tim Doyle's lackeys. You're not his butt boys. You're the planning board of Franklin Township. And I respect you to do the right thing, the smart thing, and the thing that's valuable to Franklin Township. That land pays $20,000 in taxes at the present time. What would it pay if that development was there? Hundreds of thousands? Millions, and the court's already said it's lawful? Come on. Let's stop playing games. Let's stop having government of the few, by the few, for the few. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Nancy Kennedy, 711 St. George Street. I'm just sitting in the crowd. Good evening, Mr. Petch, Chairman Petch, I'm sorry. I'm sitting in the...
That's okay, I'm just playing Joe.
Joe, I'm sitting in the crowd and I'm looking at this motion that was filed that I do thank the planning board for providing because it does show transparency. And I can tell you what I think is happening. I think most of the people who are sitting up there probably don't fully understand the legal process that's unfolding. And I don't think that's an unfair thing to say because I'm an attorney, but I don't regularly practice in specifically this field. And it's not easy for me to understand. And I guess I would just tell all of you what I personally am seeing as I sit there and read it. And that is that someone is speaking for you, that someone is speaking for all of you to the court and saying the planning board has concerns. Someone's speaking for all of you and saying the planning board appointed Mr. Madden to represent them. Someone is speaking for all of you and saying the planning board thinks it's a better idea to spend money on protecting Tim Doyle's right to farm this particular land than it is to repair the playground at Malaga Lake, than it is to make our schools a little better. We don't have unlimited money in Franklin Township. I sure as hell don't. I'm not as wealthy as Mr. Doyle. He loves to point it out. I do need to work for a living. I'm not a rich guy like him. And maybe I don't even want to be, because I'll tell you what, living in Franklin Township, you learn a lot of things. And one of the things you'll learn is to appreciate the things that you do work for. And when tax dollars are spent and tax dollars are assigned to different categories by very competent elected officials, I usually, almost always, whether Republican or Democrat, have believed that the people doing it have had the best interests of the residents at heart. So when we see something like this that's completely aberrational, because I bet in private, if we were at Kavanaugh's, if we polled everybody one by one, who the heck wants to spend tens of thousands of dollars so that Tim Doyle can keep the Gruchowskis from selling their private land? None of us. None of you, I'd be willing to bet. So what that tells me is you're not getting the best advice. You're getting advice from someone or someones who don't want you to do what in your gut you feel is the right thing. The thing that benefits all of Franklin Township and not necessarily Mr. Doyle. It makes me cringe to think about votes being taken in private. That shouldn't be happening. Because if it's something that you need to vote on, something that you're putting your name on, something that you're putting in front of a court and saying, hey court, think about this. You need to have all the information necessary so that your vote is an informed one that is recognized by everyone. And again, it's so easy in the day-to-day to show up for a meeting and just look at what's put in front of you as the administrator. There were times where somebody would hand me something and I wouldn't be fully up to speed on it. You just kind of have to go with it. Take time in closed session, please. Don't just go with this. Ask the questions. How did we get this lawyer? Why is my name being put on this? Why are votes not being done in public? Why are all of our tax dollars in this regard being spent for something that really only benefits one person? And I can say that because I'm sure in the back of some of your minds, you might also be thinking, well, hey, I don't really want a solar field there because it's really pretty when I drive down Fries Mill Road. I'd much rather it be farmland. I'd rather it be farmland too. I grew up across the street, but I happen to be a Republican who lives in the United States of America, who has a lot of belief in the Constitution and the right of private landowners to do what they want with their land, even if the forefathers didn't consider what that would do to Tim Doyle. So please, take the time when you're in the back room, ask the hard questions. Maybe some of the people sitting here in professional capacities need to do a better job representing the interests of you. When somebody asks a question, maybe the response shouldn't be the motion speaks for itself. Maybe it should be an answer. Even if that answer is it should take place in closed session. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening. And sorry to take up the time that I know is precious to all of us.
Got more time left, Nancy.
I'm not like the rest of my crew, Joe.
Okay. Thanks. Anyone else? This time I'll entertain a motion to close public portion.
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Moved, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Does anybody else have anything to bring before the board before we go into closed session? No? All right. At this time, I would ask the audience to exit. We're going to go into closed session. There will be no action. There should be no action. There will be no action.
I don't see any need for any action.
Okay. All right. There'll be no action. All right. We're back into general section. There's no action needed this evening. At this time, if no one else has anything else to bring forward, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.